Time to really date myself here, but I remember playing Asteroids in the arcade many, many moons ago. Asteroids is a phenomenal arcade game. It came out in 1979, believe it or not. And it has ported across pretty much every major platform since its inception. It has been emulated and recreated and modified, but to me, the base game is still really fun. And I think if anybody in my age group, that's us hitting or about to be 40 years old, probably has fond memories of playing arcade games when they were younger. And Asteroids was probably one that you played at some point. I think it's kind of like one of those games like Pong or Tetris that has just transcended just the niche of video gaming and has become much more widespread. So I was really excited when I got a review code for the newest Asteroids game, which I am showing to you guys here today. Now, I want to be very clear. I did receive this as a review copy, so take my opinions with a grain of salt if you think I'm being a fanboy or whatever. The game is called Asteroids Recharged. And for some reason, my code still says beta. As far as I know, it officially did release in December of 2021 on every major platform, the Nintendo Switch, the Xbox, PlayStation, and I am playing it here on Steam for the PC. Um, if you have any memory or understanding or recollection of what Asteroids is, this is basically exactly what you think it is. You're a little ship flying around shooting lasers at asteroids. While the game starts off very simple at the beginning with just very small asteroids, it increases into asteroids that explode into smaller and smaller and smaller versions. You will also start to find other things like black holes or enemy spaceships that shoot missiles back at you. One of the characteristics of this game has always been the screen wrapping feature. So if you fly all the way to the left, you appear around to the right, top to the bottom, whatever. And this comes in play significantly when you're shooting and looking at where you need to be. Most players, I know this is at least the way I play, tend to sit in the middle of the area because we know that is kind of the safe zone. We can see everything coming from us at all different directions. And you only move when you absolutely have to. Now, what makes Asteroids Remastered so different? What is something that what is this recharged version, not remastered? I mean, I guess technically it is remastered, but what does Asteroids Recharged do that's so different? Well, obviously it's a fresh coat of paint, so it's going to run very well. It's got a really nice background, smooth. I'm getting 60 frames a second. I have no issue running this, and I suspect on all platforms. I'm going to even venture on the Nintendo Switch. This runs pretty well. There's not much to this game. Still, the basic concept exists. The things that have changed from the original game, well, obviously the graphics, but that goes without saying. We also now have a soundtrack, which I'm not playing here because the first time I tried to upload it, I got a copyright strike. I have no idea why in a review code they're copywriting strike things, but maybe it's YouTube being aggressive. So you're just going to get to hear my lovely headset microphone. But it's got a nice soundtrack to it, and that's something that was actually missing from the first game, where it was just the beeps and boops of flying around and destroying asteroids. It also has power ups, which is something that I think drastically changes a lot of how this game is played. Certain saucers that you will destroy, like this one right here, will give you power ups, and some of the power ups are actually really cool. My particular favorite is one that shoots a burst in front of you in a pretty large semicircle. Basically makes you invulnerable if you're spamming from the front of your ship. You also have a triple shot. You have a beam that actually charges up and it releases this basically like Cyclops-like laser beam that just cuts through anything. It takes a couple of seconds to charge. There's also a shield ability that you can get as well on top of your regular just movement. One other thing that they've added is, and I didn't really use it. I think you saw me use it a little bit early on, and then as I just kind of progressed, I quit using it because it was incredibly unpredictable. Like where I had no idea where I was going to end up. But it seems to be this sort of like teleport. where you can, at least on the controllers, you can hit Y. I know there's a keyboard binding for it. I don't know what it is because I only play on the controller. You can teleport kind of in a random spot. I guess this would be good if you're in trouble and you need somewhere to go, but I found it so unpredictable. I didn't know where I was going to end up, so I actually stayed away from it. I just relied on my boosters and tried to navigate in the increasingly dense asteroid world. As you could see here, as I continue to play, the world gets much more hectic. There are many more asteroids coming your way. There are more enemies. There's more everything, and it's very difficult to navigate. And that's what makes this game one of those like one more itis, because when you die, I mean, you only die in one hit and it's over. It's really frustrating, but like oh man, like I should have known better. I should have been able to like predict that a pattern a little better. And it's so time consuming to die and then just jump right back in again and start playing all over and just like one more game. And that's what I found myself doing was I'm like, okay, I'm just going to play for a little bit. I think I ended up playing for a little over an hour and a half the first time I sat down and played this game, and I loved it. But again, I mean, it speaks to me because I'm an Asteroids guy. But if you're seeing this gameplay and it's not doing anything for you, there's nothing else to see here. There's no other deeper challenge. There's no other hidden mode or hidden type of gameplay. This is as basic as it is. And I think to me, there's beauty in that simplicity. Obviously, the nostalgia of playing a game, that I remember so fondly as a child and seeing it with like a fresh coat of paint. Something to consider, and you're seeing my score on the screen, and you get points obviously for destroying asteroids and ships and that sort of thing. This game has been played for so long and has such a pedigree to it that the world record for this is heavily sought after and coveted. And a lot of people continue to try to create these insane runs. A lot of them have the original arcade cabinet that launched way back in 79, or they have some sort of emulator that they play on. And believe it or not, but this is actually still a game in which a world record is kind of contested. And just to put into perspective how bad I am or how good other players are, I'm looking at Wikipedia here. We have a guy named John McAllister who has a high score of 41,838,740 points. And he played for 58 hours on a live stream. There's some other rumors out there that there's actually a 48 million record. I don't know if that exists. I don't know if there's tape of that. Remember, that's on the basic game. It didn't have all the crazy power-ups and all the crazy nonsense that this game does, or the soundtrack to listen to. It was just the basic beeps and boops, which is again mind-blowing to me. So there's definitely a pedigree here, and if this is something that you're interested in these arcade chasing, gamers and some of the legend of some of these vintage arcade games like Donkey Kong or Pac-Man or whatever, there's a whole culture out there for this. And maybe that's what's good about this game. Maybe that's the best thing I can say, is that there is still a large fan base out there. And I think people are genuinely, at least my age group, are going to be interested in checking this game out. But there isn't much else to it. But in fairness, based on what the original concept of the game was, I don't really know what else you could expect to get. The more you start to derivate from this pattern and you get really crazy with explosions, well, you're better off just playing Geometry Wars at that point, because that's exactly what that game is. Very voxely and lots of pixels and explosion and physics. This game isn't that. This game is just basically, we're going to throw a ton of rocks at you. It's a very simple but progressively difficult arcade loop, and it's up to you, just one more quarter, one more game just to get out there and keep playing. The fact that it has controller support that vibrates, the fact that it has a phenomenal soundtrack, that it looks wonderful, that there's power-ups, is everything I wanted from this and more. So, of course, I'm going to say I think it's a good recommendation, and I think it's something you may enjoy. But as I said, I did get a review code, so keep my opinion in mind and take it with a grain of salt. But that'll wrap up today's video. I hope you found it interesting and informative. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.